Good morning. So it's very interesting, isn't it? We talk about innovation and all of these great things to be done, and then we say, don't forget to tweet about the session and tweet your questions. I don't know how you're going to do that with your mobile phones off, but this is the dilemma we have, you know. We live in a world where we have some traditions, and when new technologies and things like this come across, it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to make that shift, to make that change. I wanted to start off with a little bit of a story about my own experience here in the Gulf region. I lived in Dubai for 5 years between the years of 2004 and 2009. And when I started a business here, it was in the financial services space. And I remember very distinctly going into one of the local banks. I won't mention their name, in fear that some of them might be here. And I had a contract with the Dubai Stock Exchange to deliver some training. And the Dubai government, on occasion, they take some time to pay the invoices, And so we had this situation, a bit of a shortfall of cash. We need to get some speakers in. And I went into this local bank and I said, I need to facilitate an overdraft. Here's the contract with the Dubai Stock Exchange. They're going to pay me in 90 days. Can I have an overdraft? And the person in the branch was very helpful, said, yes, absolutely, no problem. But we need some security. What security do you need? Well, we can take cash as security. Okay, so I give you $50,000 cash, and you give it back to me and charge me interest. Yeah, so these are process problems. But there's a lot of tradition in banking and payments. There's a lot of history. Even the word bank comes from, 14th century Italy. Banco, this bench that they used to have in the marketplace where the bankers used to do trade. This is this rich tradition that we have. But there's challenges in breaking this tradition. Now today, when we look at the banking industry or payments, we think of a branch experience, going into a branch as the best customer experience that our customers can have. But that's not necessarily the way it is anymore. If I pull out my phone, I'm going to expect that I should be able to do things on my mobile telephone and get things done. And if you tell me, no, that's not going to work, you have to come in the branch and sign a piece of paper, then actually that's a bad customer experience for me. The branch is not a great channel for service experience at this point anymore. It's just slow. It's poor. It's a broken process. I know I can do this. Look, I can download my boarding pass for an aircraft and get that on my mobile phone. Why can't I get my account balance on the mobile phone? What is wrong here? What's broken? What's changed? And we think we want to get customers into the branch to talk to us, because this is the best customer experience we can have, right? But this is not how our customers think about this. They talk to each other. They're on Twitter, on Facebook, on these different platforms, engaging with each other. Facebook. This is where they're getting advice today. So they're not going to end up in your bank branch talking to your advisor unless their friends already told them that you're the right bank to work with. This is a shift. When we think about the dynamics here in respect to the business, the industry, and how this has changed, there's some big shifts, some big changes here. Not least amongst them, the way we pay. 5 years ago, this device burst on the scene in July 2007, when the smartphone was released from Apple. It changed everything. And at the time, there was the likes of Bloomberg reporting on this, saying, you know what, maybe a few Apple fanboys might like this, but it's not fundamentally going to change the banking and payments industry. How wrong was that view of the world? It couldn't have changed more in the last few years. But this concept of advice being the differentiator, that banks and payments live on this special role we play in society, I want to challenge that. Think of advice, think of the differentiation in the way we work in this space. Let me just fast forward so that we now got the slides working. Relationships. We think of advice and that face-to-face interaction is the best possible interaction. But 1 in 5 couples today meet online. In fact, 1 in 4 divorces are now blamed on Facebook. So if you think you can't have a relationship with a customer digitally, that it's better to get someone face-to-face, then this is not the way it works anymore. Things have changed. Our connections have changed. Every 3 days, we generate 5 exabytes of content on the planet. Now, to put this in perspective, from the dawn of man to 2003, mankind generated about 5 exabytes of content. We do that today every 2 to 3 days. Every minute on YouTube today, more than a week's worth of video, every minute is uploaded on YouTube for the billion people a day that come to visit YouTube. So content, advice is not a differentiator anymore. In fact, things like this, technologies like this is the Scanadu tricorder. This is a device that plugs into your iPhone and you can hold it up to your temple and it will give you all of the feedback that a heart rate monitor in a hospital would give you about your health. Amazing technology. Or this is the E39 prototype shirt from a company called Under Armour. Now, Under Armour, you wear this shirt as a sporting professional, or if you're at the gym, and this has sensors in the shirt that measure your heart rate, your calorie burn, all of this information. Amazing to see this. We think of today, when we think of the way we engage customers, the way we look at banking and payments, we think of events like you come to get a loan or you want to get a credit card and we'll get you to fill out a form and put all this information. But we're missing so much value in this type of data, behavioral data, how we use money, how we pay, how we interact. This is the value of the future. The payment itself will be abstracted to nothing. Ideally, the best payment is when you don't notice it at all. So what's the context of behavior? How does behavior introduce risk? Think of it like this. Think of a fighter pilot in a jet with his head-up display. In a combat situation, it's no good telling him this information a week later. He has to have it now, in real time. And when we're making financial decisions in our life, should we wait for that once or twice a year when I go into a branch and speak to an advisor? Or is it better to give me that advice every single day as I make payments, as I make financial decisions? Maybe using technologies like this, Google Glasses. The best advice in the future will not be advice that you get from a banker in a branch. The best advice will be advice that's given you every single day when and where you need to make financial decisions. This is quite a shift. Quite a shift. Now, we know in this part of the world that mobile is hot. Everyone's talking about mobile, smartphones, iPads, all of this technology. We have amongst the highest adoption rates of technology in the world. So it should not be a surprise to us that this technology is going to be the foundation for some very interesting improvements. Mobile phone penetration is staggering in the Gulf region. So it shouldn't surprise us that we need to create banking and payments on top of this platform to differentiate, to change. In fact, the next generation of customers that come into this mix, the Y-Gens, the Gen Y, they're going to be mobile banking first in respect to payments and banking just within 2 years. You don't have 5 years or 7 years or 10 years to get this right. This is not a future thing. This is happening right now. How are we going to cater for this audience, this group? Because this is the fastest growing segment in retail banking and payments today. And yet we're disconnected from these guys. By 2016, the average retail banking customer in the MENA region will have 300 digital interactions with their bank for every one face-to-face interaction in a branch. So if you think that 1 or 2 times a year that customer comes into the branch is where the magic happens, this is where I have a relationship with my customer, then someone else comes along, but they're great at digital, and they have 300 times the opportunities to steal that relationship away. The branch is not going to save you. You have to have a digital relationship with your customers. And by the way, if this is your take on mobile banking, you've got it wrong. So, things are going to change. Things are shifting. This segment, the Y-gens, internet is not new for them. Mobiles are not new. Social media, technology is not new. They have grown up with this as part of their life. You know what is new? When you say to them, sorry, you can't do that. You have to come down the branch and sign a piece of paper. That's new, right? That's different because this is friction for them. This is not how they live their life. Text messaging, Snapchat, technologies like this, where they're sending messages back and forth to each other. This is how this generation communicates. How are you going to deal with a customer who's grown up in a world with technology like this? Where's the button on the iPad? You notice something's happening here, right? These magazines just aren't working correctly. They don't work like the iPad. This is a digital native. This is someone who's grown up with this technology in her life. You see, she soon tires of these old magazines and wants to go back to the iPad. And you can hear her reaction. She loves it. She loves it. This is my friend's daughter. She's now about 4, actually, but she was about 14 months when we used this. Now, think about that. This is a 14-month-old. You might think of technology in payments being these big mainframes, old clunky computers. This is the technology that's going to change the banking and payments industry. You don't need to learn this stuff. It's their instinct for these kids. You know, you might have to teach them what these two things had in common, though, right? How to use this, right? Do you remember that? And I recently had a friend he was saying to me, you won't believe this, I had this young kid working in the office. He came in, he wanted to know how to put a stamp on an envelope. How do you message someone with this thing? And it takes days, what? Or why you had to rewind these before you took them back to the video store. You remember that? You used to pay a fine if you... These are skills, unfortunately, our digital natives won't have. Maybe we should train them. This is actually a training session teaching kids how to write checks. But it's the same thing. Just like that cassette tape, like the VHS, teaching our kids to write a check because post-dated checks are big in the UAE, right? This is not their instinct anymore. We are going to have to change our instinct to connect with this generation. If we don't, it's just going to be this massive gap. Now, think about this. You think, but we get great service in a branch, face-to-face, it's superior, right? This is the way we're used to it. But these kids, they connect very, very differently. I want to give you a great illustration of this. This is a concert that has appeared around the world. And you'll notice something different about this concert. But this is attended by kids in the hundreds of thousands. This is a Hitsana Muke. So I don't know whether you've noticed anything different about this concert. This is an avatar. This is a piece of software. So originally designed to advertise some voice synthesis software, this became so popular in Japan that they released a single around this character. This single became so popular, they did an album. And of course, when an album gets good, when it gets big sales, you have to have a concert. The only thing is, this is not a human singer. This is an avatar. This is a computer-generated image. And people, young kids in their hundreds of thousands all around the world have been to see Hitsana in concert. Now you think to yourself, We're trying to get them in the branch or have a face-to-face interaction because we think that's superior. These kids will go to a concert with a computer. And you think that a face-to-face thing is going to motivate them to work with your brand? This is not how they work anymore. Their instinct is fundamentally different. This is what we have to remember. Their instincts have changed. Our instincts must change to stay relevant. If we don't, they will find workarounds to the system. So whether it's travel insurance at the airport, getting this pushed to your mobile phone when and where you need it, or whether you're out looking for a car and making that decision for a car loan at the spot, at the dealership, without post-dated checks, by the way, or whether it's signing up for a mortgage or getting a pre-approved mortgage when you're out looking for a home, this is how financial services is going to change. So the problem right now is we think that getting a credit card or buying travel insurance or buying a car loan or buying a mortgage, we think these are products that our customers buy. They don't. They travel. They buy a car. They buy a home. And the financial service product just facilitates their life. We've got so confident about our products as banks and providers in the system that we think people will stop buying a car until they get our car loan. But once we get the technology right, if you stop someone from buying the car when they know there's a better way, it's just friction then. It's a disadvantage. So if I'm a bank and I say, no, we can't do that, we need you to come down here, sign out these forms, give us 3 years of financial statements, and maybe in 5 days, if you're lucky, we might let you be our customer. This is a fundamentally broken system. Financial services will have to shift. Context of financial services is going to be absolutely key in the future. Let's think about it this way. This is how banking worked many years ago. Some of you will remember having a passbook, yeah? You don't have to admit your age, but when I started my banking relationship, I was at school, at primary school in Australia actually, and I remember taking a trip to the bank branch and getting this passbook, and I think they gave me $2 in, I thought I was rich, I was 6 at the time, you know. Here I was. So this is what we called our bank account back in the 60s. This was our bank account. And of course things change, we don't use our passbook anymore, but now we have our checkbook. You know, this was our bank account in the 80s and the 90s. This was the instantiation of our bank account. But today, things have changed. It's our debit card. And this is the most used artifact for banking today. The most used artifact is simply paying with a card at a point of sale or going to an ATM machine. Now, the problem with these artifacts, with these cards, is that these are essentially pretty dumb. They don't give you any feedback. The only feedback this can give you at a point of sale, when you swipe it, is approved or declined. And you know, in this data-rich, context-rich world, that's just not good enough anymore. You know, what's the #1 requested piece of information from a retail bank today? Any ideas? What's the #1 requested piece of information from a customer to their retail bank? What's the #1 thing you want to know about your bank relationship? It's pretty simple. How much money is in my account? What's my account balance? In fact, in the Gulf region, for retail banks, 60 to 70% of call center traffic is still this one question. What's my account balance? Now, if only we had a device that you could use to pay at a store, but could give you your balance before a transaction and after a transaction. Now, that would be something. That would be smarter. But today, we've seen adaptations to this world that are pretty primitive. We've seen people just try to shove internet banking on a smaller screen or shove a debit card in a wallet. The real change is changing our connection to our money, changing our behavior, changing the context of financial services. This is actually a screen grab of Movenbank, the bank that we've started in New York. And you can see that when you pay with your phone, you get pushed in real time at the point of sale, the receipt. But the receipt is not just telling you how much you've spent at this merchant. We tell you You spent $5 at Gregory's Coffee this month, $20 at Gregory's this month, and you've spent $245 eating out this month. Now, when I first started using this, the first month, I found out that I spent $687 on taxis in New York. Now, if you'd asked me for that estimate before I used this system, I probably would have guessed $200, $250. So much of our spending is unconscious. We just don't know how much money we're putting through the system. Discretionary spending activities day to day. This is where we can have control over our savings and our spendings. But banks have made a lot of money out of our ignorance, particularly on credit cards, about how much money we're putting against that card every time we swipe. They don't actually want you to know. But this is what context is going to demand in the future of this industry. Context, power, control, empowerment of the consumer that comes through the connection with your money and connection with the payments and banking institutions. Think of it this way. Apple stores, these guys have had a phenomenal experience. How many of you have an Apple device? Can I have a show? iPad or iPhone? Isn't that incredible? Most of the audience, right? Just in a few years, they've become dominant. And now, of course, Samsung's the hottest thing on the mobile phone side. But Apple does not care where you buy their products. Every time you engage with them, the experience is fantastic. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If you're a banker, you might be thinking, you know what, but if we just built better branches that maybe look like Apple stores, all our problems are going to be solved, right? People love going to Apple stores, yeah? But think about this. Where do you go to buy your apps for your iPad or your iPhone? Do you go back to the store? Well, why not? They have geniuses in the store. See, this is the thing. Banking is more like apps that we load onto our iPad and iPhone day to day than it is going to a store for that great experience. We have to build compelling customer journeys, build great experiences for our customers every day, whenever and wherever they're doing the banking. That's the trick. Because at the end of the day, we have a problem with the slides. At the end of the day, banking and payments, it's no longer about the place you go, it's something you do. And that's what we have to build with the team that we've got here today, the infrastructure, the different players, the disparate players, telcos, the ID authority, the banks, the payments processors. We have to create banking that you can do when and where you need it. Banking and payments. Utility is key, but context makes utility something special. Thanks very much.